Have you ever felt love in a relationship only to have it seem like it faded away or one day just sort of disappeared? How many of you felt that before? Well, according to science, falling in love is a phenomenon determined by biology and instinct. Kind of like the mating call from Canadian geese. I don't mean to romanticize this too much for Valentine's Day, but when the falling in love phenomenon strikes, two people do things for one another that they wouldn't ordinarily do. How many of you know that? According to psychologist and author Dr. Dorothy Tenoff, this in-love phenomenon lasts 2 years or less. This talk getting more depressing as we go, huh? Then the individuals fall back upon their normal habits and personality. Oh, is that what happens? Well, one could say that it's at that point that real love begins. Real love being doing loving things. Real love being action. I like the story of Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. A man came to him and said, "Stephen, I don't love my wife anymore." And Stephen said, "Well, then what you need to do is love her." So I don't think you understand. That's why I came to you. I don't love my wife anymore. And he said, then you need to love her. In other words, love is a choice. Love is action. Do loving things, and that will help stir up, reignite that love that was there in the beginning. So, what does the term, the 5 love languages, mean? And why is that important? According to Gary Chapman, the author of The 5 Love Languages, which is New York Times bestseller and has been a very popular book, what that essentially means is that we all, growing up, witnessed from our primary caretakers, often parents, behaviors that they expressed communicating love. And that's oftentimes our personal love language. What we grew up seeing, observing our primary caretakers doing. And that tends to be what we do. But here's the thing. Not everybody had the same primary caretakers. We all have different things we witnessed growing up as to what love looks like. And so one person could be expressing love as they understand it, and the other may want something different or not quite feeling it. It's not quite connecting because they're used to love showing up a different way. So Chapman says that we all have our primary love language. And when we're loved in that way, it quickens that love within us. We feel loved. Now, oftentimes, as we did in the meditation today, I talk about spiritually, we all want to actually learn to feel that love and well-being independent of people. In our spiritual essence, right? Learning to find that inner fulfillment, that inner love, and not demand anything from people. And I think that's an important thing to learn even in this, okay? I think these are good tools because we live in a world with people. And the more fulfilled in spirit we become, the more I think we're able to love people without the the need and the strings and everything else that happen or can happen in a relationship. So I want to keep that in the back of our mind. But I think that understanding the 5 love languages can be a really great way of expressing love in a relationship. And not just romantic relationship, not just personal relationship. I think that, understanding it with friends and family members and daughter and son-in-laws and whoever can be helpful, as you'll see. So the more we can understand, what is my love language? What have I, as a human, a spiritual being having a human experience, what is it that I grew up that really makes me feel loved? Can be helpful. And it can be helpful to know what is the love language of the one that maybe you're in a personal relationship with, or someone else you want to feel loved. So what are the 5 love languages? Words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Those are the 5 love languages. Jesus, the way shower and teacher, taught that love ought to be the center of our life, right? And St. Paul said faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. So certainly the 5 love languages are not just limited to personal romantic relationships. They're ways of loving. So love language number 1, words of affirmation. So as we go through this, be thinking, what might your love language be? And what might the love language of maybe someone you're with now or someone you've been with in the past? Let's try to learn and apply these. I'm going to help you. Mark Twain said, I can live for 2 months on a good compliment. How many of you like good compliments? All right. We got a couple people maybe verbal affirmation might be important. Others, not so much. Of course, I've talked to people. I've asked them, what is your love language, do you think? And often people say, I like them all. I want them all. And that's great. Why not? But we probably have a primary one that is most significant to us. So words of affirmation include encouraging words. The word encourage means to inspire courage. This is where encouraging someone to be more of who they are, to express their potential, to take a step towards something that's important to them. Encouraging them. Expressing through your words that you care, you're with them. How can I help you? How can I encourage you? It also includes kind words. Paul said, love is kind. Kindness can be heard in the tone of our voice. How do we express our anger or hurts with another person? How do we receive the anger or hurt from another person? Do we return anger with anger, or do we return it with a soft kindness, an understanding, an empathy? Now, I think that's a goal. And, putting ourselves in the shoes of another, trying to understand where they're coming from. Now, sometimes I wonder if, depending on who you're with, sometimes more energy in your voice might actually be more effective, right? Some people you can be real soft, kind voice, and it doesn't seem to register. But here's the difference in my mind. We don't want to react out of lack of self-control and out of reactivity. We want to be, we really want our response to come out of love, to come out of kindness, right? That's the goal, is to be so centered that we can respond from kindness. And if somebody needs to hear it in a louder tone, we can do that, but it's from a place of kindness and love, of what's going to work for that relationship. Does that make sense? So you can make a list of positive things you appreciate about your partner or your spouse or your relative, whoever it is you want to express love and verbal affirmation to. Make the request, the things you appreciate as specific as possible and add to the list. So let me share what Betty Joe's list is. He makes the house payment each month. He also pays the electrical bill, the gas bill, the water bill. These are genuine things that Betty Joe appreciates about Bill. You know, things that we often take for granted. Like, well, of course he pays the house bill. I cook dinner, you know, or whatever. But actually verbally expressing it is important. And you know, it makes a difference, doesn't it? You might be cleaning the house and just hearing, honey, I really appreciate how you keep the house so clean. That makes the vacuuming and the sweeping and the cleaning that much easier, doesn't it? Especially if his love language is verbal affirmation. This is what Bill's list is. She makes the beds every day. She vacuums the house every week. She takes my clothes to the cleaners. These are very practical things that we can easily feel like we're being taken for granted. But verbal affirmation, honey, I appreciate it when you take my clothes, pick up my clothes from the cleaner. Can be very, very important. So here's an action statement from twice a week, pick one positive trait and express verbal appreciation for it. Twice a week. How many of you are challenged in saying positive things to somebody? That's a wonderful challenge. Let's practice. Let's see what we can do. When someone expresses verbal appreciation to you, simply say, thank you for saying that, instead of needing to say something back. Take it in. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. So let's all say that now. Together, let's practice. Somebody says something complimentary to you. What do you want to hear? What would you like to hear? All right, now let's practice. Thank you for saying that. Together, thank you for saying that. That's all you got to do. Take it in. Chapman says, pick one positive trait, express verbal appreciation for it twice a week for 2 months. The love doctor. That's what the love doctor says. All right, love language number 2. Quality time. Doing things that the other person enjoys and doing it wholeheartedly. This is time together. This is doing something that you enjoy together. Now, it doesn't mean that you both have to really want to do it and really love doing it. You don't. One of you needs to want to do it and the other needs to be willing to do it. And then do it wholeheartedly. Not, oh God, we're going bowling. All right. I said we go bowling. Let's go bowling. No. Wholeheartedly go bowling for the person. And because it's a way of expressing love. You're both there doing something together. One of you has that love language, that together time is very important, and this activity is important, and so that's why you're doing this together. Make time for it. Make a list of the things your spouse or partner or someone else wants to do with you. Make a list. Add to it. For example, meeting for lunch. Or when she comes home at night, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to talk with her about her day and listen as she tells me about her day. That stuff's very important. Someone with that love language, particularly. Go walking with him and talk as you walk. Those are some possibilities. Can you think of one thing that your partner or spouse or someone else you know has expressed that they would like to do? Can you think of one thing that they've expressed that they would like to do? All right. Make a note. Make a note. Now, I grew up grew up with my mother and stepfather pretty much. And one of my favorite things to do was Mom would cook dinner and we'd all sit down and watch a movie together. You know, we went to drive-ins together after having dinner. We'd go to a drive-in or something. So I always enjoy that with friends and family, to just have a meal and watch a movie. For me, it's a time of getting together and sharing. Quality conversation is part of this. Listening empathetically, uninterrupted. This requires good listening skills, doesn't it? So the other person feels understood and heard, and attention is given to. Man, is that challenging today, huh? Everybody's got this device out. Research shows that even if it's sitting on the dinner table, it detracts from the relationship. You know? Now I can understand if two people go, okay, it's phone time. You get on your phone, I get on my phone, and we're both going, oh, what are you looking at? Oh, I'm looking at this. Oh, and I'm looking at this. I can see how that could be a together time. Let's get together, you and I, on our phones, and we're going to talk about what we're looking at. Okay, that could be, right? No. But when you're with somebody and you want their attention, and out comes the phone and they start jiggling on the phone, what's the message? I'm more interested in my phone than I am you. My phone's more interesting, isn't it? So I think we need to be aware of that. Quality conversation is important. Also, not only listening, gentlemen, listen up to this one. Learning to talk. Learning to talk. Now I know not all men have that challenge, but a lot of men do. You know, here's a question. Are you a Dead Sea or a babbling brook? Now, if you're a babbling brook that likes to talk, I'm not short on words, you know, you like to talk, maybe you need to listen a little more. If you're a Dead Sea and you don't say much, maybe you need to talk a little more. Try talking more. I know I've been guilty of that in the past. You know, share your thoughts and feelings more. One suggestion is that men keep a notebook of emotions that they felt in the last 3 hours, and then share that in the conversation. You know, hey, I was just, so-and-so happened, and I was feeling a little anxious about it. And, you know, I'm wondering what to do. I'm a little confused. Whatever the emotion is, just sharing it. Conversation. Conversation. Or, you know, he says share a minimum requirement, 3 things that happened that day. Now, I grew up with a mom who's a babbling brook. Okay? I mean, you know, 99% of the time. And she would tell me every detail of her day. My eyes would roll back in my head. So somewhere along the line, I was thinking I became more of a listener than a talker. And then I learned these ideas. I realized, oh, no, I need to talk more. And I used to think that everyday events were kind of boring because I'd hear every event in my mom's day. But just sharing 3 things that happened that day can be important to that person in time together. Make sense? So his challenge, I think, probably for primarily married people or people, you know, who are together a lot, do 1 activity a week for the next 2 months. Love language number 1. Which one is, anybody remember?
Words of affirmation.
Yes, verbal affirmation. Yes. Love language number 2. That's right, time together. I heard somebody on internet land say time together. That's right. Love language number 3. Receiving gifts. What does receiving a gift say to somebody with that love language? He was thinking of me. She cares. She remembered me. You know, you got to go out and get the gift, and then you got to give the gift. It takes time and energy and thought. Gifts are symbols of love, just like in a marriage, or another kind of relationship. Giving rings are symbols of love. They're symbols. That's what gifts are. Now, the cost of the gift isn't as important as the thought behind the gift, and it's not important to everybody. Some people it's very important. They grew up and they got gifts, and that's how they feel loved. Some people it's not so important. So, can you think of a time that you got a gift that really meant a lot to you? How many of you can remember a gift that really meant a lot to you? Okay, cool. Now, can you remember a gift that you gave somebody else that really lit them up? I mean, somebody you know well, so it wasn't just politeness. You knew they really liked that gift. Well, that can be a good guideline as to what kind of gifts to give that person. And that might be a good guideline. Maybe that's their love language. Or, if they complain about, you never give me gifts, only Christmas or Hanukkah, that they might mean I would love to have more gifts. It doesn't have to be expensive. And then, of course, there's the gift of self. Being there for somebody in a stressful time. Someone died, maybe they have an illness, maybe there's some other stressful challenge, is a time to give the gift of self. A husband once shared, when my mother died, my wife's supervisor said that she could be off 2 hours for the funeral, but she needed to get back in the office by the afternoon. My wife told him that she felt her husband needed her support that day, and she would have to be away the entire day. Supervisor replied, if you're gone all day, you may well lose your job. And she responded, my husband is more important than my job. He says she spent the rest of the day with me, and I never felt more loved than before that because of that time she gave. That's him calling to say, I love you now. So, incidentally, she didn't lose her job. Her supervisor soon left, and she was asked to take his job. Go ahead on now. Yes. All right, so receiving gifts. Love language number 4, acts of service. Acts of service. In the New Testament, in ancient times in Palestine, when people came into your house, they had some dirty feet. They wore sandals. They had some dusty, nasty feet. And the servant would clean those feet. So in the New Testament, Jesus cleaned his disciples' feet. And he said, the greatest among you is the one who serves. The power of service. So this love language this is very important. Doing things for your loved one that they want you to do. Not necessarily things that we want to do or we think they would like doing, but what they want done. For example, this man, his wife cooked these gourmet meals. And he kept complaining, honey, you don't need to spend so much time cooking. I eat simply, I'm simple. You don't have to do so much cooking. We could be spending that time doing other things. Well, guess what other things he wanted to do? His love language was different than her love language. She grew up with a mom who cooked a lot and was a good cook, and the father at the dinner table would praise her cooking, and in public he'd talk about how great her cooking was. And so she grew up thinking, this is how you express love. You cook. You make great meals. You spend a lot of time in the kitchen. Well, his love language was touch, which we're going to talk about in a minute. He would have rather spent less time her in the kitchen and more time holding hands, whatever, right? Touch. So that's why the question is, what would your partner, your spouse, your loved one like you to do? Like cooking a meal, setting the table, washing dishes, vacuuming, cleaning the commode, getting hairs out of the sink. removing spots off the mirror, taking out the garbage, changing the changing the baby's diaper. These are very practical things, ladies and gentlemen. We're not talking about, crazy stuff. Everyday life. There's a joke about the husband who brought his wife flowers and candy. Perfect for Valentine's Day, right? Brought her flowers and candy, and then he said, let's have sex. And the wife said, oh, brother. On another day, the husband said, honey, I did the laundry, washed the dishes, and mowed the grass. And the wife responded, you're hot, baby. Doing what they want you to do. We've heard the golden rule, do unto others as they would have them do unto you. Well, maybe what's more effective in relationships is do unto others as they would have you do unto them. You get it? Acts of service. So you can make a request list of things you'd like your significant other to do for you in that department. Mark's list for his wife: make up the beds every day. Have the baby's face washed when I get home. And he goes on. Those are his requests. Her requests, Mary's requests: I wish he would wash the car every week instead of expecting me to do it. I wish he would change the baby's diaper after he gets home in the afternoon, especially if I'm working on supper. So, knowing what your significant other would like. What is one thing that your partner or beloved or loved one would like you to do? Gee, Justin, I don't know. That's why it's good to make a list. Find out. Ask them. Ask them. And then that's one way to meet their love language in service. So here's an action step. Fulfill 4 requests for 2 months. And then add 1 request the following month. I don't want to overwhelm you with steps to do. Take what resonates, what connects from this message, and do what you can. These are challenges if you want. You can re-listen to this, re-watch it, and meet those challenges, or just do whatever you can remember to do. Love is a conscious choice. Each person has his own language of feeling loved, and communicate love in your beloved's love language. Words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and then love language number 5. Can you guess what it is? Touch. Yes, sir. Touch. Touch. When babies are held and hugged and kissed, they are healthier emotionally. Right? So, touch is not a modern idea. In the ancient Palestine, the disciples brought children to Jesus to touch. And the disciples said, no, his time is too busy for this. This is foolishness. And Jesus rebuked them. He said, let the children come unto me. And it says he touched and blessed them. Touch is powerful, especially if that's your love language. I remember dating a girl who was shared with me how one of her last boyfriends used to touch her a lot, and she loved that. What do you think she was trying to tell me? Touch her more, right? I didn't get it. I didn't know about the love languages. But now you do. Holding hands, kissing, hugging, or other stuff, making love, whatever it is, touch. And you can come up with new and exciting ways to touch, like touching under the table at dinner, like holding hands in public, kissing when you get in the car together, giving a hug when he or she is about to, or they are about to go to the grocery store. I once read some research that when two people kiss before going to work, a long kiss, a nice kiss, they live longer. Touching in crisis is important, right? Holding their hand, hugging if they're crying. In a crisis, touch can be very, very powerful. Verbal affirmation, time together, gift giving, acts of service, physical touch. And one question that people ask is, how do you discover your primary love language? Chapman suggests to ask yourself, what does your partner or spouse or significant other fail to do that hurts you the most deeply? You know, what do you tell friends about if you tell friends? Or what do you talk to God about, or whoever you talk to? What do you complain about? He never gives me gifts. Only on Christmas do I get a gift. Well, that might be your love language, receiving gifts. He doesn't touch me much, you know. We only kiss, it's, you know, whatever. What is it that hurts you deeply enough? He never listens to me. He's always on the phone. He's always doing this. I don't have his undivided attention ever. Well, that might be your love language. Though we all want undivided attention anyway, right? So, what do you complain about? And usually the opposite of what hurts you is probably your love language. Now here's a quiz, some examples and a quiz for you. Mary in Ontario says, Ron never lifts a hand to help me around the house. He watches television while I do all the work. I don't understand how he could do that if he really loved me. Which love language is that? Service. Service, right? Or another person. She says that Lisa never gets me gifts. And that makes me very sad. You know, only on holidays do I get a gift. I wish she would do more for me. Bring me more gifts. It makes me feel loved. Which love language is that? Receiving gifts. Complaining that her significant other never listens to her. He never listens. What is that? Quality time. Look back over your relationship and ask, what have I most often requested of this person? What do you find you request of that person? A lot. That may signal your love language. And then, how do you consciously express love to your partner, significant other, or spouse, or others? How do you express love? That may be a signal of what your love language is, right? The wife who was cooking a lot of food, likes to cook for people, it's probably your love language. Service might be your love language. So some general questions people ask. One, is it good to have the same love language as another person? I hear a no. I'm going to say that I guess it would be nice if you both had the same love language. You know, if you're both verbal affirmation, then there may not be any shortage in positive, encouraging words going back between you, right? But as I said before, most people want all of the love languages, you know? So let's not get lazy by trying to find somebody out there who is the same love language so we don't have to do a whole lot. That's where we're coming from. The relationship is in trouble already. No. Well, I guess it could be helpful, but even that, even if you both had verbal affirmation, their way of hearing it's probably different than your way of hearing it, right? So even still, you got to get to know your partner or the loved one, the beloved. You still got to get to know them. Another question. Which love languages are compatible? Now, come on, did you not listen to my first answer? Which love languages are compatible? You know, why do you want to know that? Are you lazy? What's going on here? I want someone who's just like me. I don't have to do all the other stuff. No, I get it. You might think that that's necessary. That's going to make it better. I mean, let's just say that you both, if they were compatible, I would say, let's say verbal affirmation and time together, right? Because when you're time together, you got to talk, you know? So maybe that would be compatible. I mean, if your verbal affirmation and his or her love language is touch, that's not necessarily, you know, going to be natural together, right? It could be. Let's not get X-rated on us here. I am a minister after all. Quit putting those thoughts in my mind. You metaphysical people, transference, thought transference. Again, you got to be, you know, do all of them. Do all of them. So it doesn't matter which one is compatible. They're love languages. You know, it's just learn the love language. Don't try to get lazy by finding somebody who is compatible with your love language. Now, maybe I misread your question there, but I think we want to get good at all of them. That's the real answer. We want to get good at all of them. We want to be a whole rounded person, right? You might find that you love one of them more than you realized. Well, some of y'all might be uptight and stuff, and you know, you're wonderful, you're great, you don't want any touch. Next thing you know, you're like, oh, I love touch. This is great. Don't limit yourself. Verbal affirmation, time together, gift giving, acts of service, physical touch. Here's another question. Can love languages change? And if so, why? Deep down, I'm not sure they really can change because you grew up watching certain ways of loving and that was expressed to you. And I'm guessing that's pretty rooted inside of us. However, what could change is our awareness of what our real love language is. You might have thought it was one thing, but as time goes on, you really find yourself lighting up with one, and you go, oh my gosh, maybe that's my real primary love language, because I love that. You know, so maybe that's what really happens is you change in your awareness of what really is meaningful and significant for you. That is my guess. But if you're like most people I've talked to, you want it all too. You may have a primary love language, but you don't mind the other stuff either. So, if you want to ignite the flame of love in your relationship or relationships, if you want your partner or spouse or friend or family member to feel loved, then discover what his or her love language is. Start to speak that language of love. And I think, and I'm going to give you some corny line here, I think you will find that the bouquet of love will start blossoming in your relationship. Blah. Wasn't that sweet? Happy Valentine's Day. I'll have to include a scripture now after that. St. Paul said, faith, hope, and love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. Let's get still. Thank you, Father, Mother, God, for your presence and your love. Thank you for your love that embraces us all the time. That we are an expression of your love. And thank you for the gift of life. Living on this planet where all the action is happening. That's right. Not a whole lot happening anywhere else that we're aware of. It's all happening right here. And we have the opportunity to be a part of it, to experience it. Thank you for the gift of life, for this opportunity to be alive, and for the ability to choose love, the ability to express love, and see what happens. the excitement of discovering, getting to know someone, getting to know people, the excitement of discovering what does it feel like, what is it like to express love in different ways, to expand who we are. We're grateful for this opportunity. And we're grateful for the tools and the techniques and the tips for how we can be a greater expression of love. And for your presence and for your love, we are grateful. And so it is. Amen. Want to thank our musicians for being with us today. Arne Batson, coming to us from California, and Lumazone, Alexander Perez, and Sissel Ben Saman from Denmark. Apparently they're both in Denmark together. That was beautiful what they shared with us. And thank you for you being here this morning and online. We appreciate you, and we wish you a weekend full of love, whether your team wins in the Super Bowl or not. I wish you a wonderful time and a happy weekend. Happy Love Day to you. God bless you. And let us join together in knowing the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Yea, God, and yea, you. Namaste.